What is irony? What are the various types of irony and how is irony used in literature? Irony is concealment or contradiction of the words in spoken as well as written form. The contradiction is in the literal meaning as well as in the metaphorical meaning. There are five types of irony. First one is tragic irony, second one is comic irony, third one is situational irony, fourth one is verbal irony, and the fifth one is Socratic irony. We are going to see all these one by one in this particular session. Hopefully you are doing fine. My name is Dr. Ismail Abbasi. So let's see that what irony is. Linguistic or literary device in spoken or written form in which real meaning is concealed or contradicted that may be the result of the literal ostensible meaning of the words contradicting their actual meaning, which is apparent in verbal irony, or the structural incongruity between what is expected and what occurs, that is apparent in dramatic irony. So words are utilized in some such manner that they depict the meaning which represent the opposite intended meaning to the apparent appearance of the words. These are the four various examples that reflect irony. First example is a story about a child which states the child of a Formula One driver not being able to drive. So it is ironic, the father is very expert, but the child doesn't know how to drive. Second story states a gifted artist having no interest in visiting art galleries. It is also contradictory because an artist's work always is available in the art galleries, and therefore artists keep on visiting those galleries in order to see the trends and the fashions in their own field. Third story, an astronomer being afraid of the dark. It is ironic in a sense because the whole vacuum in the space, the whole space is filled with darkness, and all these astronomers they have to go over there in those dark places. Third fourth story states a cat lover being allergic to cats. So you can't be a lover of cats if you are allergic to cats. And the last one states an estate agent not being able to sell their own house. So you are selling the houses of the other people, but you are unable to sell the house of your own. So these examples show that how various meanings which are contradictory in nature are reflected through these sentences. So let's see all these types in detail. First one is tragic irony. As you know that tragedy is the downfall from the higher level to the lower level. Tragic irony is the first of the two types of dramatic irony. First one being tragic and the second one being comic. So both types always show the reader more than it shows its characters. In tragic irony, the author lets the reader in on the downfall, waiting for the protagonist before the character know it themselves. So, what does it say? It says that in tragic dramatic irony, the author lets the reader in on the downfall for the progress. So the readers know in detail, but the protagonists do not know that much. For example, Romeo and Juliet story. is available where Romeo drinks the poison when Juliet is faking, or when Juliet is in the has drunk the sleeping portion, where Romeo thinks that Juliet has killed herself, and later on Romeo killing herself leads to the killing of the Juliet in the end of the story. So it is a kind of tragic irony. Second one is comic irony. Comic irony uses the same structure as dramatic irony, only in this case it's used to make readers laugh, just like with the tragic irony. This type of irony depends on allowing the reader more than the protagonist. For example, anti-piracy group accused of stealing photo used in anti-piracy ad. So the one who is responsible to control the situation are themselves are indulging in that particular act of stealing. Third one is situational irony. Situational irony is when a story shows us the opposite of what we expect. This might be something like an American character ordering shop local buttons from a factory in China, or someone loudly championing the ethics of a vegan diet when wearing a leather jacket. So you want to show yourself to be a vegetarian, but you are using a jacket that is made of a leather of an animal. Another example would be boycott China, made in China. This was a kind of famous situation where boycott China caps were made and they were sold in India, but actually the same caps were made in China. So it is a kind of situational irony where the situation in itself is different from whatever is apparent. Fourth one is verbal irony. Verbal irony is what we recognize most in our lives as sarcasm. It means saying the opposite of your intended meaning of what you intend your readers to understand, usually by either understatement or overstatement. This can be used for both tragic as well as comic effect. Example of the verbal irony: Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, where Mark Antony performs a funeral speech honoring the character Brutus, and he repeatedly calls him noble and an honorable man, even though Brutus was actually involved in the death of the man for which the funeral is being held. That is why Brutus is a dubious character, and the famous Shakespearean quote where it states, "You too, Brutus," when Brutus was involved. So it is a kind of irony. The responsible for the murder is being praised as noble and honorable. Fifth situation is the where Socratic irony is utilized. Socratic irony is actually a little bit like dramatic irony, except that it happens between two characters rather than between the characters and the reader. This type of irony happens when one character knows something that the other character don't. It is a manipulative technique that a character uses in order to achieve a goal, to get information, to gain a confession, or to catch someone in a lie. For example, a police officer or a liar will often use this technique to trip someone up They will pretend they don't know something and ask questions in order to trick someone into saying something they didn't intend. So here you pretend that you don't know the situation, but you actually know the situation and you trick the people into some kind of confession. So this was the fifth one. In today's session, we talked about five forms of irony, which where first one was tragic irony, second one was comic irony, third one was situational irony, fourth one was verbal irony, and the fifth one was Socratic irony. So you could see the difference in all these through the examples which were discussed in this session. If you have any question, you can reach me out. Till then, stay happy, stay blessed, and make other happy and blessed. Allah Hafiz and take care.